Hey, this is Joe Big House Ken for Inside the House, powered by Dynamic Fitness and Strength, building the better athlete. And in today's episode, man, I am excited to talk to my guy, Duke Manyweather, OLine Masterminds. Duke is a professional O-line expert. He trains many of the NFL athletes who are veterans, as well as upcoming guys, preparing them for the combine and into their first training camp. Duke played at Humboldt State, played a little bit of arena ball, and then he went into the sport of powerlifting. Kind of similar transition that I did after my college football career. So we've got a lot in common from that standpoint. And the funny part is Drew Peterson, Duke's strength and conditioning coach, actually started at Humboldt in 1991 when I started at Boise State, and he is still actually there, isn't he, Duke?
He is still there. Drew is still there. Of course, Humboldt decided to do away with football at the end of the 2018 season. But, Drew is the glue that really holds that athletic program together. He has put so many people out to, run their own programs. He's put a lot of phenomenal coaches out, and going to Humboldt State and that experience, and Drew Peterson, who's still in my life as a mentor, was the best thing that ever happened to me. Still talk to him very often just to get his perspective. And this, when you're at places like Humboldt State and Boise at the time, you got to be a damn coach to get stuff done and develop. There's no half-stepping. Some of the best coaches you'll find are at your smaller schools because they are doing more with less.
I 100% agree. So, Duke, welcome to the show, my man. Thanks for – I'm excited that you're on. So I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And hell, over the years, we've had so many conversations that should have been podcast along. So it's fun to actually be able to do one now.
So let's start off with this, because when I first met you, I can't remember if it was Schwartz that introduced us or we met before then. I'm not super sure, but when we started talking mostly about O-line, you had your T-shirts, the term strike, leverage, finish. When it comes to O-line play, let's open up there. Give us a little bit of the definitions and what that terms mean to you, that you would put that on a T-shirt for O-line play.
Yeah, strike, leverage, drive, finish are, coaching cues in which I always gave as a coach. I used during my evaluation, my evaluation type reports as well. And really what it is, it's the foundation of, when you get out of your stance, and no matter if you're talking about, pass protection in a sense or run fit, just that strike and then be able to create leverage with the hands, being able to drive a guy against his will and then finish in the block. When you really break down those terms in terms of what they really mean by definition, a strike is hitting forcibly or deliberate with an object, one's hands, a weapon, or some other implement with intent. So I felt that was really fitting for the O-line position, but then also in life. When you talk about striking things and life, going after it with intent, that's exactly what you have to do. You have to be able to, anything that you're going to do in life, you've got to be able to really strike it and do it deliberately. You can't be half in, half out. When we talk about leverage, it's the exertion of force by means or lever or moment arm in the manner of, again, intent. So being able to have leverage over somebody on the offensive line, we're talking about creating leverage with the hands, really getting that relationship between elbows and hips to get lift and redirecting force up. That way you can start to project out on a guy. When we talk about it in life, you've always got to be leveraging a situation within your favor if you want to get, again, where you want to be. When we talk about drive, is to forcibly propel, carry, or direct in a specific direction, again, with intent. Same thing that we want to do on the offensive line. There's no greater joy than pushing a man from point A to point B against his will, driving him off the ball, driving him in the opposite direction than what he wants to go. So again, when we talk about life and any goal, any problem, we want to be able to drive and direct things in a specific direction. And then the finish is very simple. We want to always be finishing on the field. We want to always be finishing in life, and that's to bring to an end, to complete, or to see the thing through. So I felt not only as offensive line coaching cues as a coach, not only as an evaluation term, but in life, that strike, leverage, drive, finish has so much meaning to me, and then also to the position.
Awesome. So now let's piggyback into this. You become, let's face it, you are an O-line expert. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have put in the time, you put in the effort. The people you work with commend you. You've reached national heights that I always love and pump you up. I know it humbles you, because I know what kind of guy you are, and you're not doing it for that. You'd rather be behind the scenes. But you came up. Now, I'm sure there's a team behind you, but the OLine Masterminds concept, where you have begun to bring in, and now it's kind of exploded to it. Everybody talks about it. But at first, it was kind of under the radar when you first started this concept. Who were some of the brainchilds with you behind this? And when I'm gonna let you fill in the gaps, because here's my thoughts behind it. Who was the brain trust? What was the original thoughts? And then just give us a quick outline of what that weekend looks like. How much film do you guys evaluate? How much practical stuff? And most importantly, the interaction and fellowship. Because now, like I saw this year, and I'm guessing now, you're saying more coaches are actually showing up. I saw Brian Baldinger, who I played with his brother Gary at Wake Forest, was actually there. And then I heard a couple of other people on Twitter land that had that are ESPN or NFL Network type people, like, hey, I need to get to that next year. So give us a little bit of a viewpoint of how something like that gets created, and then how it took off to where it is today.
It's definitely humbling. I've been very clear of my whole purpose and trajectory in the O-line space, and that's to help to advance the position and to really just bring guys along. Football and offensive line specific has always been what I've done, and I had to go about it in a different way than most people. I wasn't the longest guy, but the things that I controlled were how hard I worked, how I prepared. I worked on my craft, I worked on my strength, and I worked on my mind. That gave me, when I didn't have the athletic advantage or I didn't have the physical traits, that gave me the opportunity to stay on the field when every year at every level, they were trying to replace me. It didn't matter where I went, high school, college, even in the arena. I remember when I got cut from the Arkansas Twisters, Jim Beverly, my O-line coach, actually drove me to the airport because he wanted to talk to me. And really what he told me was, hey, you got a natural ability to teach and lead. He goes, you've heard this before, you're fighting genetics. He goes, if you want to continue to chase this thing, you're going to get your opportunity. He goes, but if not, you're going to be a hell of a coach. Well, what Jim didn't know is before I had even signed with the Twisters, I had an opportunity to coach that I kind of put on the back burner. And just so happened, as I had got back to my parents' house in Southern California, that very next day, Coach Dave Manducci at College of the Redwoods called me and said, our offensive line job is still open that we offered to you. I know you're playing right now, but whenever you're done, it's here. And I immediately called Dave back. I said, I'll be there this weekend. But getting back to your original question with OLine Masterminds, man, we just finished our third annual OLine Mastermind. And really the original concept came on Saturday mornings. What would end up happening is we would have intense weekends of training or intense weeks of training. And Saturday morning was kind of like a fun walk and talk. We would do some mobility, some correctives, a lot of prep work, some crawling, some route stuff. But then we would get into some walk and talk, situations. And what I end up seeing is organically it would happen. You would see Jeremy Parnell grabbing a younger guy, or you would see Ron Leary grabbing a younger guy and just kind of explaining to him the law of the land of what to expect in training camp or what to expect playing a certain guy. And so I just kind of tucked it away, and because I would learn so much from it. So if you go back and look at some of my social media from 3 or 4 years ago, there were some of those snippets where we're just, on the turf and they're talking about how to handle a 4-eye or a tilt or something like that. Well, fast forward, I think that was like 2016, 17, that started to happen. I'm sitting in my living room and I'm watching NFL Top 100. And Lane Johnson comes on the screen. He goes, man, these D linemen are getting so good and they're starting to have summits. I figure we all need to get in a room and figure out how to stop these guys. Well, I had trained Lane. Me and Lane got a great relationship. And so I called Lane. I said, Lane, you said we need to all get in a room and figure out how to stop these guys. I said, I'm going to do it. He said, well, what do you plan on doing? Is it something you want to do next year? I said, it's May. It's April right now. I said, no, we're going to do this summer. And he just kind of laughed. And I tell you what, he said, okay, well, he goes, listen, he goes, you start working on it. I'll start getting people there. Well, I knew that at that time I had probably 15 or 20 guys. So I knew at least 15 guys would show up. And so I started working on it. I literally walked to Baylor Scott and White, which is right across the street at the Star, told them my story, told them what I planned on doing. They didn't say no. So that's really all I needed was a space. And then I hired my own film crew, Mike Lamb, who's still with me today. And the rest is history. I made an Evite and I started texting people, sent Lane the first text, had Teron Armstead, Mitchell Schwartz, Jeff Schwartz. And so that first year we had 27 guys in the room. I think it was something around 3 Super Bowls, 3 All-Pros, 1,800 starts, somewhere around there. But the guys that we had in the room, it's always about the guys in the arena. It's not about me. Right. So when you got Lane Johnson talking shop, when you got Teron Armstead talking shop, when you've got Mitchell Schwartz talking shop, when you got Jeff talking shop, when you've got Ron Leary, Jeremy Parnell, all those guys have a lot of football experience and knowledge, and they're helping to bring those younger guys along. So when we fast forward to year 2, we had almost doubled. We had 47 guys, more national media attention, more partnerships involved again. And all it was really me walking, telling my story, and nobody said no. And I thought that was really cool. So I knew I was kind of on to something. But I mean, we started to add a Brandon Brooks. So more all-pro, Pro Bowl caliber guys. Multiple people from OLine units, and people are talking about. It had grown into what we saw in the 3rd annual this year, where we had some college prospects there. We had a good group of college coaches there. The national media sees it, NFL Films being involved, kind of doing a day in a life and tracking us the entire weekend. Brian Baldinger. It's really a humbling experience, but this thing is always about the guys in the arena. It's always about those guys sharing their experiences, and then me really being the moderator and giving my perspective as a performance coach, and then as an offensive line coach, as an evaluator, because I've been able to wear all 3 of those hats. Kind of some of the life skills stuff, some of the mental performance pieces, which we've got a mental performance coach that's involved with us. So it's not to sound cliche, but it's really a one-stop shop for all things offensive line, and it's in the true essence of the mastermind principle that Napoleon Hill talked about 60, 70 years ago, when you get one or more people together with the same intent, with the same focus, failure is almost impossible and success is inevitable. And I think there's one thing that I've learned over the past couple of years are the truly elite performers and elite thinkers want as much information as possible. They're not afraid to share it, and they're not afraid to take it in. And then what they're able to do is process it and then make it their own in their own type of package. So that's really what we've seen. A lot of these elite thinkers, a lot of these special type players coming together and saying, hey, listen, this is how I do things against a specific guy, or in my preparation. This is how I handle the media. This is how I handle conflict with a coach. This is how I handle, getting to bring some of the younger guys along in my room. And it's really, I learned so much from them. Even they'll tell you, hey, we learned so much from you, but I learned more from them because there's more guys in the arena than there is of one to do.
Just to wrap it up, we talk about different ways to get better. If somebody wanted, how does somebody get involved with the OLine Masterminds? Like if they wanted to attend, is it ever going to be to a point where you actually have like it's like the combine now. Remember, no one could go to the combine. And then it was like,
Yep.
open it up to a few people. Will you ever
Well,
get to a point where you'll open it up and like actually have like, okay, we're going to have 10 special invites to people that are outside the family?
quite frankly, this year it was open. It was open to anybody that wanted to come and attend. We had a couple of high school coaches come. We had a couple of high school players come. We had, college coaches come, college players. I mean, I make no money off this. I mean, this is like, and in fact, there was a big back and forth between me and the NCAA because they really had no information on it. What they thought was that this was some special NFL sponsor camp ran by. And when I got on the phone, I mean, there was a bunch of email exchanges. And when I got on the phone and explained why I do what I do and the philosophy behind it, they were like, wow, that's awesome. And I said, you know what? You guys can send down compliance or whoever you want and come check it out. So we've got nothing to hide. I said, this is O-linemen talking O-line and talking everything under the sun, from food to how to take care of your darn ankles. And so I think it is very beneficial. But I say all that to say this, as this thing continues to grow, we're looking at this year we did 2 days. In the previous years, we've done 3 days. It's been, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're probably going to keep it at 2 days. But if we add a third day in, what's probably going to end up happening is that's going to be like a big, high school youth football clinic as well. Because we want this thing to be completely open and transparent, because at the end of the day, we want to advance the position. And that starts at the grassroots level as well.
Yeah, I believe that too. That's the one thing after 9 years in the NFL, the amount you can learn just by observation of an NFL player. And like you said, how smart they are and what their needs are and what their individual assessments are, just they make it easy for you. I mean, again, you're talking about O-line, and I coached some very good O-linemen at the Panthers, but I coached Julius Peppers for 2 years, and even him, like you said, as great a talent as he is, the amount of study he did, like he knew, like you were saying, your guys are trying to block him and learn his nuances. He's studying your guys, trying to get tips on him. And then, Luke Kuechly was the mastermind. I mean, he was the ultimate of sharing knowledge, but his film study, I mean, there was a reason why he knew a play was being called and could make all those tackles. Obviously, it was a tremendous amount of athletic ability, but he knew what was coming because he studied. And that's what I think sometimes people who aren't in the behind the scenes like we are take for granted, like, oh, these guys are just so much more talented. And there's a reason. Yes, they are more talented. But the truth is their preparation needs to be more applauded than sometimes it gets.
Yeah, I can specifically remember Luke Kuechly story. First time I saw Luke Kuechly play in person was a November 2015 game, Carolina down in Dallas. I saw that firsthand, and I believe Luke Kuechly had 2 pick sixes in that first half that really blew the game back to back. And I'll never forget just man, did he know the plays? But it was very evident in which the speed that he was playing, his play speed, there's guys that are fast, and I don't think people realize how fast these guys are to get down on the field like we've been. But there's a relationship between play speed and then that mental process. So you could be fast as hell, but if you don't know what the hell you're doing, you're not going to make it to the spot that you need to be to make an impact. Luke Kuechly had played at a different speed, and you knew it was because of that mental piece. He knew exactly what was coming and what was happening. And in that regard, that made him special. But you're 100% right. When you start to look at some of these elite performers, the difference is really that information and then just how they process and prepare for it.
Yeah, the other thing, like on the opposite side, is we see a lot of times guys come to the NFL with extremely talented measurables, but yet from a cognizant standpoint, they cannot process it fast enough. And people like, oh, he's playing slow. He must not be in shape, or something's wrong. He plays a lot slower. Well, there's a lot more processing in the NFL than in college, even though college has gotten more sophisticated. So I think that's what happens. And there's guys who can figure that out. And that's where coaching sometimes comes into play, where sometimes the guys a coach may not understand, like, hey, he may just not be getting it, and you got to teach him a different way to learn.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And that's one thing that I have learned as a coach is that the first thing you have to do is it's one thing to say, this is how we're going to do it. But if you really want to get the most out of each player, you got to learn how they learn. And you got to learn what really relates to them and relays to them in terms of processing and picking up. Because some people take, there's some people take internal cues, some people take external cues, some people take examples. And so once you figure that out about a guy, it really boils down to, and it really reverts back to really showing a guy that you care. And if you show a guy that you care about them, you're going to learn how he learns. And at that point, it's going to make you even more effective in coaching him and helping him develop.
Great. Hey, Duke, man, I can't thank you enough for your time. I've probably kept you too long. We could keep going on. I could fill up notebooks full of stuff. But again, OLine is something I have a lot of pride in. I know you do especially, and all the great things you're doing. And I'm hoping that we get a lot of OLine guys to listen to this episode of Inside the House. So, Duke, man, I can't thank you enough for being on.
Man, this was fun, man. You've always been very gracious with your time. Even if it was before games, we're down on the field or whatever, just, talking shop. It's cool because I'm looking forward to part 2 of this already. We already established that there will be a part 2. So
yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about the strength training. So, hey, this is Joe Ken for Inside the House, powered by Dynamic Fitness and Strength, building the better athlete. And as always, till next episode, words win. Thanks, Duke.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, man. Appreciate it.